Just another manic Monday. Do we wish it was Sunday, though, to watch the Broncos lose again? And this is the DNVR Broncos podcast, where it just feels like it's the same story, different week, same story, different year. Although the Broncos, Henry, as bad as it's been over the past 8 years, they've only been in this situation one other time in those 8 years, sitting at 1-4. 2019, the Broncos started 1-4. They won their next game to go in 2-4. The Broncos haven't seen 1-5 in 3 decades. We might be 3 days away from looking at that. This is just brutal. And let's talk about the game yesterday, Henry. And we are here on the DNVR Broncos podcast. Henry Chisholm rolling with you, Zach Stevens as well. Todd is going to be back tomorrow. I really hope he didn't waste his vacation watching that game yesterday, because it was embarrassing, disastrous, brutal. I mean, you could just keep going through the words. And Henry, right before we started this show, I said, what's the best word to use to describe that game?
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, it's just sad. Like, they just don't have it. Like, I don't know. It's tough because, like, it's another game they could have won. Like, you go through, I mean, Russ said it after the game, like, we could be 4-1 right here. It's like, yeah, you make 2 more plays in those 3 games, but now we've seen 2, well, I guess a season and a half now, where they're just incapable of making those games. I mean, they have all those halftime leads last year. You just hold on to your halftime leads. You're an 11-win team last year, but that's just the way the NFL works. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a couple plays away, because that's how basically every game works. Yeah. And the problem with this team is that they just can't close games out. Yeah, and it's that simple.
And I absolutely hated hearing Russ say that, because Russ he's all about positivity, and you need that, especially right now. But I do like that he said, like, well, we can't do the woulda, coulda, shouldas. Russ said, we could easily be 4-1 right now. Well, you're not. And like you said, Henry, an important thing to follow that up with about how you're a couple of plays away in each game, an important thing to follow that up with is that's how 90% of NFL games are, that you're just a couple of plays away. The good teams make those couple of plays. The bad teams don't make those couple of plays. And as the New York Jets said after the game, Robert Saleh after the game said, we should have blown them out of the water.
Which, like, what does he even mean by that?
Well, it makes total sense. That he was talking about red zone. They were 0 for 5 in the red zone. Yeah. If they are 2 for 5 in the red zone, then you're talking about an 18-point win. And that's just a couple of plays away too. So
exactly,
you can't say
couple
of. Yeah. No, what I'm saying though is, if you want to say how the Broncos are close to 4-1. You could probably also make the case that they're 2 plays away in every game from getting absolutely destroyed. This is a bad team. I don't want to hear excuses. And it's just that. So you said sad. I think that's a good word to use after yesterday, because the reality really sinks in.
That was it.
Just about where the team is, the season being over. The word that I would use is embarrassing, because you're now 0-2 against Zach Wilson in Denver, Colorado in the past year. And then specifically just looking at this year, this Jets game, you and Ryan didn't think this was that difficult of a game when they had Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. They lose Aaron Rodgers, and now you lose to Zach Wilson at home. And then what just really makes it embarrassing is all the storylines surrounding Nathaniel Hackett. And now, Henry, Nathaniel Hackett has more wins in Denver this year than Sean Payton was. And Sean Payton's had 2 more opportunities.
That's true. Yeah, and I don't know. The Hackett stuff didn't really get me going the last couple of days. I guess we kind of wrote about it. It's one of those things where, yeah, it'll suck that people like make the jokes on Twitter and the Jets get to send their tweets off. And today, I'm sure like whatever the ESPN morning show is doing whatever they do. But to me, that doesn't even matter. Like, all that really matters is you're 1-4. The season's over. Like, it's not mathematically over, but you'd have to do something like win 2 your next 4. and those are 2 against the Chiefs, 1 against the Bills, 1 against the Packers, and then you'd have to win 6 of 8 after that, and then you have to hope that 9 and 8 is enough, and that just that's just basically impossible. You know, the last team that started 1 and 4 to make the playoffs, that was Tim Tebow, and that's when 8 and 8 was good enough to win the division. So there's just like that to me, like the Hackett stuff, I don't even care. What Saul had to say, I don't even care. All that matters is that the season is dead, and like it just sucks that we're gonna go 11 months without real football.
Yeah, it does suck. That does suck. But Henry, I do think the Hackett stuff did matter because I wouldn't have said that if the Jets players weren't literally talking about it and using it as motivation right before the game. Defensive players, too. It wasn't just the offensive guys. Did you see the clip before the game?
No.
When I believe it was C.J. Mosley, a defense is on the field in the end zone, and earmuffs here. What? Oh, it wasn't CJ. It was Uzoma. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, it was him. And on the field, right before the game, earmuffs. He says, "Let's win this bitch for Hackett."
Yep.
So I wouldn't have been surprised if the Jets completely blew off this storyline all week. We didn't hear anything about it, and then after the game, it was like, yeah, it was nice to do that for Hackett. But after the game, at least from the quotes that I read, only one Jets player said, "No, this wasn't about Hackett." Every other Jets player said this was about Nathaniel Hackett and the things that Sean Payton said. And so the fact that they used it for motivation before the game, shame on Sean Payton, because he gave him that. You didn't have to do that. Sean Payton did not have to go to USA Today and give those comments to him. And then just let the fans say it was one of the worst coaching jobs in NFL history. But now you give this to them, and that was a very motivated New York Jets team, and it did not help the Broncos yesterday. And a 10-point loss to the New York Jets at home, just on top of everything else. I mean, some people are saying that was rock bottom, not even the 70-point performance that they gave up to the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. But I don't even look at it as like the Jets beat them. Like, once again, the Broncos just beat themselves. Like, you've got Marvin Mims now, another fumble. Like, that's an issue. That's something where now going forward, you have to wonder, like, is he a guy who you can't trust to hold on to the ball? Because that's three free points right there. You have the penalties that kill the drives. You have the safety when Russ doesn't get rid of the ball. I mean, I don't look at what the Jets did and say, like, wow, I'm impressed. You know, like, the running game was nice. The Broncos running game,
extremely impressed.
Broncos running game was just as good in the first half. And Sean Payton said a couple times he got away from it. And I think that's, to me, probably the most glaring mistake from him all season is the fact that he just didn't run the football. Like, you had it going. I think at halftime, he was run for 7.3 yards per carry. They had, I think it might have already had 100 rushing yards too. Like,
they did.
You have those sorts of mistakes as well, like changing up the game plan when you have something that's clearly working. But again, like, the running game's kind of canceled out in that first half before things spiraled because of the weird play calling, and you lose DJ Jones, and all of a sudden there's just a blown hole wide open right there, and he goes for 70 yards right where DJ is supposed to be. I mean, there's just, to me, it's just those same mistakes over and over and over again. And like, all three of these games, really, all three of these home games they've lost, it's been their own fault. They haven't been beaten. They've just blown it themselves.
Wow. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, so I want to ask you this question. It seems like you don't think the Broncos are as bad as their 1-4 record.
I don't know.
Is that fair?
I don't know. I mean, like, a 1-4 record, I don't know what your average 1-4 team looks like. I mean, I'd imagine they're probably exactly the same as every 1-4 team. Like, why not?
Because it just feels like you're saying that earlier you said they're just a couple of plays away.
Yeah,
and they're beating themselves. Other teams aren't beating them. And to me, you just keep mentioning these mistakes just keep happening. Mistakes just keep happening.
Exactly.
Mistakes just keep happening.
That's a bad football team.
Those are no longer mistakes. Yeah,
they're still mistakes. Yeah.
Well, no, that's who you are, though. You are a mistake team. You are a bad football team. And Sean Payton said it, or no, one of the most concerning quotes that I've seen all season came from Alex Singleton after the game last night, and I thought it was some really good insight. So this is nothing against Alex at all, but listen to what Alex said after the game. Actually, I'm sorry, it was Josie. He said, "We had a couple of guys out of place every single time, it seems like. We have to deal with it. I think we have to have better communication, execution, stay in our gaps, and play football." we had a couple of guys out of place every single time.
I mean, that's what they've been doing for 3 weeks.
And
like every single play, there's guys who are in the wrong spot, and so that's why they're giving up 200 rushing yards a game, 250 rushing yards a game.
That's an awful football team right there. That is so concerning on so many levels, on coaching, on players, on preparation throughout the week. Literally, everyone is blamed for that, and you mentioned it. The rushing game, we're seeing, or the defensive rushing game, we're seeing historically bad football in terms of stopping the run. Henry, in the past 3 games, the Broncos have given up 755 rushing yards.
Yep.
Think about that. 250 rushing yards per game in the last 3 games.
Yep.
That's the worst 3-game stretch in Denver Broncos history. It's, I think, the 4th worst stretch in the NFL in the past 40 seasons. We're talking historically bad. And then the pass defense has also been getting torched. So we're just talking about the worst defense in the NFL, giving up the most points per game, the most yards per play. There's no way that you can look at this defense and really put any positive spin on it outside of like a Pat Surtain pick that he had last night. Right now, the Broncos also, unsurprisingly, have the worst rushing defense in the NFL, giving up almost an average of 200 yards per game for the whole season.
Yeah. And again, though, I mean, you look at that and say, you can get away with that on defense. You really can.
What are you talking about?
The Broncos had the ball with 2 minutes left in a 3-point game. Like, they had their opportunity. Like, you'd love for the defense to go and win the game, but they didn't lose you the game, you know? And the offense, the same thing. You could say, if you just didn't give up 200 yards, like if you just would have done a little bit better there, then the offense would have potentially done enough. They probably would have needed to find one more score somewhere, I guess. But that's the problem, is that there's no strength. Like there's nothing that makes up for anything else. Like you even look through the roster, and there aren't many players who you look at and say, like, we're good here. Like that's a guy who's like a good starter in the NFL. Like they lack talent. They don't play well together, and like they're a bad football team. I mean, they're 1-4.
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of that simple. And here we are. And at this point, it just doesn't even matter anymore. And that's the shitty part, is that the season is over. Like football is gone until next September. Like it's just 11 months without the Broncos now.
Yeah, it really sucks. And we have a game against the Chiefs. Henry, the Broncos haven't even played 2 division games, and you're saying the season's over.
It's crazy
already. The Broncos haven't even. And what maybe the most disappointing part of all of this at 1-4 is they've arguably played their 3 easiest games of the season. All home games: Commanders, Raiders, and Jets without Aaron Rodgers at home. Probably the 3 easiest games on their schedule. You look at the Texans.
Patriots is your easiest.
Patriots.
Oh my goodness, they've scored 3 points the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think the
It's
Patriots
been 71-3.
I think the Patriots is right in there.
Okay.
But I think those are 3 of the 4 easiest games if you want to boil it down like that. The Patriots are a dumpster fire, just as they're looking at Denver and saying they're a dumpster fire as well. And let's dive into this conversation, because I don't think you and I are watching the same football, Henry, potentially.
Really?
You just said that what the Broncos are doing on defense, you can get away with.
I mean, they did in Chicago.
They're giving
and
up
they almost
36 points per game. It's the worst in the NFL.
They had the ball in a 3-point game with 2 minutes left.
But
it's right there. It's winnable.
I agree with Hank a little bit, because you can look at the Commanders one too. Like you could have gotten away with that too, because you were winning the game with kind of bad defense.
Exactly.
Like
you just need somebody to make a play.
You just need a little bit better offense, and you win some of these.
But what we're talking about, that's how 90% of games are. We've got to drop that. We're just a couple of plays away.
But they are.
No,
like.
But Henry,
that's a 50-50 game down the stretch, and you lost it.
But you've lost every single one of these, so
exactly.
That's on the Broncos. That reflects
they're a bad
who they
football
are.
team. Exactly, I totally agree.
They are a bad football team. So let's dive into who's most to blame for this bad football team, for yesterday, for where we are 5 games into the season, and talk about how correctable it is. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at Game Time. When you use the code DNVR over at Game Time, you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. If you want to go to Kansas City this week to see Broncos and Chiefs, you can get $20 off. If you want to go see the Broncos' next home game, They're playing the Packers, which we get to see the Packers tonight. Maybe tomorrow morning we're saying that Packers game is winnable, or maybe we're saying, Broncos don't have a chance in that one.
It's definitely winnable.
We'll see how they look tonight, because the Packers, last time they played, they looked awful, just like the Broncos did. They got smoked by the Lions. But if you want to go to that home game, ticket prices are probably going to be falling. That might be the only upside of the Broncos season going off the rails so early is ticket prices go down, and then you get an extra $20 off by using that code DNVR over at Game Time. Avs season starts this Wednesday. You want to go to Avs Nuggets games, Game Time is the place to go.
Yep, and go check out Spirit Hound. They're a local company right here in Lyons, Colorado. They've got an award-winning whiskey, won the 2022 Whiskey of the Year in the London Spirits competition. They've got whiskey and vodka and gin that you can find at stores all across Colorado. You can also order online to 40 plus states. So check out that stuff. Remember, if you want to go up to their distillery in Lyons, you can bring in juniper berries and you'll get a free cocktail.
There we go.
Okay.
that was a sudden end to the read, just like the game yesterday was a sudden end when Russ got stripped, and then the Jets picked it up for 6, and that just put the icing on the game. Yeah. And we heard from Sean about that play today, because we saw Russ coming off the sidelines, and we saw Sean just absolutely chewing him out, and Russ really wanted nothing to do with him. It kind of reminded me when Russ walked by Nathaniel Hackett in week 1, when Russ was pulled off the field to kick the 63-yard field goal. And Russ just kind of walked right by Hackett, had no interaction with him. That reminded me of yesterday, which isn't a good thing to be drawn back to last year with things. And he was asked about that animated exchange, and Sean, unsurprisingly, downplayed it. And just said, I just want to make sure he knew that the Will linebacker was a free rusher there. Yeah.
I mean, just Russ screwing up. Like, it's been an issue with him. I think a lot of people have been complaining about him holding on to the ball too long. Yeah. The big reason is just that the receivers aren't open. But that one actually was on him. That's when you see that guy coming, like, he's supposed to just get that to the running back right behind the guy. And I haven't seen the replay. Maybe something happened and, like, some linebacker also crashed in, so that wasn't available. But in theory, like, that's what he's telling him there. And instead he said, well, I'll just outrun this guy. And it's like, that's not how it works. Like, that one is definitely obviously on Russ.
It's like his fumble against the Commanders too. At some point you have to know at the end of the game, similar. At some point you just have to know when to also throw the ball away. You're right that the first read should have just been to that running back. But then once you get into this position, you got to know, just live to play another down right there. And so that really, the Broncos passing game and protection and pressure yesterday was on everyone. It was on Russ for holding the ball too long. I do think there were many plays he held the ball too long. It was on the receivers for not getting open, and it was also on the offensive line. In fact, Sean Payton today put the blame specifically on Mike McGlinchey and Garrett Bowles. Said our tackles collapsed too much, the pocket collapsed too much, our tackles need to be stronger. And then I'm also putting the blame on Sean Payton for that as well, because for the second time in 5 games, I've heard something that's just so concerning. He said, things just weren't open deep because they were giving us that too high look, and we need to find ways to get things open when teams are doing that. Henry, if I'm the Chiefs, if I'm any other team that plays Denver, I'm playing exactly how the Commanders played them, exactly how yesterday the Jets played them, because it seems whether it's Sean, whether it's Russ, whether this receiver is probably a combination of all of them. When teams take away the deep throws and play this relaxed defense, the Broncos don't know what to do. Now, they have to have a counterpunch, and Sean said that they need to find that counterpunch, but 5 games in and they can't find a counterpunch to soft zone defense? Like, what are we doing here?
They had it, but they bailed on it. Like, when they run that defense, you just run the football on them. Like, they don't have people to defend the run, and it worked. You know, it's the same thing in basketball where it's like, we just can't get to the rim. Like, they've collapsed the defense. Like, the answer isn't like, we've just got to, like, keep charging in there. It's like, no, just stop passing the football and run the football. Well, because that's why it worked.
Then that's 100% on Sean. And he took the blame last night. He took the blame this morning. He said, I need to be more patient with the running game, let those things come. But man, we have had coordinators, offensive coordinators calling plays around here for the past 7 years where we're pulling our hair out saying, what are they doing abandoning the run when they're down 3 points? Now the Broncos have had the lead at home 3 times this year at halftime, and you're still seeing Sean kind of abandon the run. And we weren't supposed to have those issues with this team. And I just think I'm just frustrated because it was supposed to be better on the coaching side. Last year was supposed to be better on the quarterback side.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. This year was supposed to be better on the coaching side, and it hasn't been.
You don't think so?
far.
I think it has. I mean,
Henry,
they're scoring
you just pointed
points.
to a reason why the Broncos lost.
Oh, definitely.
That
It
was
hasn't
Sean
been great.
Payton.
Yes, absolutely. But you compare it to last year where they can't even snap the ball on time. They can't get plays in.
Oh, no, don't forget, that happened earlier this year. Communication.
But not on the same
not being
level.
able to snap the ball.
But not on the
Pre-snap
same level.
penalties. Yes. Not on the same level throughout the whole time, but in 5 games, we've already seen the exact same issues arise.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not nearly as they're actually scoring points. They're moving the ball. You can look at any metric and they've been better this year. But again, it's just not enough. It just turns out that defense is falling apart behind them too. But yeah, but then the other piece, so you run the football, but the other part, and they've done this well too, is just you throw to your running backs and you throw to your tight ends a little bit too. And that's what they did, and it worked for them. That's all they needed that entire game is you run those backs out to the flats. You can run some screens. They did a great job with some of those misdirection balls to Samaje in the flat. And if the Jets are just going to keep giving you that, just keep taking it and taking it and taking it. But then you look and say, first drive after halftime, they get 2 yards on a run to Jaleel, and then Russ throws incomplete. They have to throw because it's 3rd and 8, and he runs for 2 yards. The next one, first downs on this next drive, you've got Russell Wilson scramble. And so, again, you're going away from the running game, but then on top of that, you've got the holding penalty. And so now it's 1st and 20. So you run there, which is you get it, and you pick up 8 yards, but now you're still 2nd and 12. And so what do? You throw the ball, and you're screwed. And then the next one, the next 3 and out, you run for 5 yards, 2nd and 5, incomplete pass. And once again, 3rd and 5, you just kind of have to pass it. You just need to bank on the running game more. And it's not that they 100% totally abandoned it. It's that they didn't lean into it. And that's what they should do is you have one clear strength. The defense is taking one thing away, and that's those receivers on the boundaries. That's the deep ball, all that sort of stuff. It was right there for them, and they just got a little too cute.
Yeah, they certainly did. And that's where the game was lost coming out of halftime. And that's where a lot of these Broncos games have been lost this season is coming out of halftime. The Broncos offense has been great on the script starting the first half. They need to go to the script or something in the second half. Sean looks a lot better as a play caller. Russ looks a lot more comfortable, makes quicker decisions with the ball. Then when they get off the script, it's disastrous. Now, you can't run a script for an entire game, but they have to figure out, those two and the entire offense have to figure out how to have success off the script because that is just killing this team. Out of halftime, we know about the 72-yard run where Breece Hall pretty much goes untouched for a touchdown. That opened it up for the Jets offense. But then that third quarter, the Broncos had 4 yards of offense.
Yeah.
The Broncos have had quarters like this seemingly every single game where it's a quarter to 2 quarters of just awful, awful football where the offense is non-existent. They can't have that. Now, you don't have to go out and average a touchdown or a field goal every single drive, but you do have to pick up a couple of first downs every couple of series. They had the first 5 drives of the second half, Henry. They had 4 3-and-outs and a fumble. Not a single first down in 5 drives and negative 18 yards with penalty yards on top of that. That is mind-blowing. So one of the things that the Broncos need to do is, you're right, they don't need to necessarily be doubling their points every single game because then they'd be the best offense in the NFL. Right now they're averaging 24 points per game, which is, I think, slightly above average. But what they have to do is they can't disappear for quarters, halves at a time. Same with the defense. I mean, you look at the start of the game, Henry. The Broncos defense started off great. In fact, the Broncos defense gave up 0 yards in the first 4 Jets drives. And it was like, okay, look, the Broncos got Justin Simmons back, Josie Jewell back, Mike Purcell back this week, PJ Locke back. It's like, man, maybe they just were that injured where, especially against the run and communication, all of these issues, they just needed these injured guys back. And after the first quarter, it felt felt good. It was like, oh my gosh, okay,
Yep.
we're seeing this team come together. And then it just fell apart. The next 4 drives, the Jets had 200 and over 240 yards. And then we know the historically bad run defense showed up again.
Yeah, and I do think a lot of that just losing DJ Jones. Like, I mostly because last week I went back through, like, doing game grades. You're just like, oh my God, like, the reason they beat the Bears, the best part of that defense was DJ Jones. Like, he's in the backfield every play. He's disrupting. Like, it looked incredible. And then you wind up in a situation where there's just holes everywhere. And I haven't gone through to see who exactly is screwing up yet. That'll be right after this. It'll be a lot of fun. But, yeah, I mean, it's just out of position. It felt like the missed tackles weren't as much of an issue. But yeah, and I can't remember. I was talking to either Mace or Troy Rank yesterday in the press box. Like at halftime, it's one of those things where like the Jets have 6.6 yards per carry, but you live with it. Like that's just fine. Like that's what you expect. Breece Hall himself has 6.6 yards per carry this season. We knew that he was ready to get like a bigger workload. The key was just not letting him get the big one, and they let him get the big one, and then things kind of spiraled from there. And I'm not sure. I'm curious if they start calling things differently. If after that, like we got to pack the box more, and so that opens some stuff on the outside. And now you're playing this like push and pull type thing that's giving you some issues. I'm not totally sure, but yeah, the defense just totally fell apart. And the interesting thing is that.
Wait, but do you think the defense? Because just again, don't want to put words in your mouth, but do you think the defense just rests on DJ Jones?
No, but I do think that when it comes to stopping the run, like he's one of those key guys. Like it's the linebackers and whoever's in the middle of that defensive line, you know. And when you lose him, and all of a sudden you've got guys are getting pushed back. Well, then all of a sudden you can't, like Alex can't get to a gap because all the lineman's pushed back, and so the angle just isn't there, and so everything can kind of fall apart. But I mean, there's misassignments, there's all sorts of things. The weird thing to me though is that they were great in the red zone. Like, they were a great red zone defense, and typically that's, like, against the Dolphins, that makes sense, because now you get to pack things in. You don't have to worry so much about the deep ball. The fact that they were giving up so much on the ground, but then somehow were able to stop him in the red zone, that's interesting to me. That's another thing that I'm excited to go back and look at.
Yeah, and I think that the defense, DJ Jones this season has played in 49% of the defensive snaps. Last year he played in 55%, so he's not. It's not like you've missed him for so much, and yet your run defense is the worst in the NFL by far. I don't think that DJ Jones. I think it's a way bigger issue,
definitely,
than just one player.
But yeah, losing one of the most important pieces though, like it just makes it tough. Like they're already working at a talent deficit. Like they don't have like a whole bunch of guys who you trust to step up. Like when you lose one of the players you look at and say like, this is one of our 4 or 5 best defensive players, it goes a long way, especially for a team that doesn't have depth like the Broncos.
Yeah, again, you're not really missing him that much more than you were last year in terms of the number of snaps he's playing.
But I think that's probably just in games that he played in too. Like that just being a rotational player.
No, that's
really?
That's 49% of the entire defensive plays.
Interesting.
And unfortunately, and kind of why I've pushed back so much against you, Henry, is I'm done with this. Like the Broncos are one player away. The Broncos are
they're definitely not
one play away. But I mean, I'm just anytime you bring up like, oh, it's just one of these things. I think what's really hit me over these past five games is just how bad this team is. And how much things desperately need to change. They need to get out of the mindset of just one player away, one thing away, one play away. See, and that's where we disagree.
Because you go back through and something goes wrong on each of these plays. Like you go, like you
exactly.
Sit through
but every single play when things go wrong, it's not just
exactly.
That's how bad you are. It's not. Let's just fix 1 or 2 things.
I don't know that we're on different pages here then, because like I totally agree. Like the Broncos are potentially the worst team in the NFL. But that's just the way the game works, is that like even that Dolphins game, you sit there and it feels like, wow, they're just getting like pushed back on every play, like everybody's failing. But then you go back and look and it's like, oh no, DTY just missed this, or like Jaquan just missed this, like he missed it. And so it is on each individual play. And so that's why like when you talk about 72-yard run, having your nose tackle in there, like that might have been the difference on that play.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, but then
Everything, it all starts with something.
Yeah, but then you look and the Jets still had 170 rushing yards outside of that one play.
Yeah.
And then you look
But
the
that's
week
what you
before.
expected. Yeah.
And you should never go into a game expecting a team to have 170 rushing yards outside of a 72-yard touchdown run. And again, it's not just one game. It's the worst run defense in the NFL.
Absolutely.
So it's not just one player. It's not just one play. It's
Because
not just
they
one
make so many
misassignment.
mistakes.
It's everything. Okay, we still dove into the game yesterday, which is totally fine. But now I really want to get into where does the biggest issue lie? Is the blame on Vance Joseph? Is it on Sean Payton? Is it on George Paton? Is it on Russ? Is it on who is this on? And I want your answer to that right after I tell you about our friends over at Breckenridge Brewery. Man, you're probably watching the first half of that game, enjoying Breck Brews for the fun of it. It was the celebratory Breck Brews. What, up 13-7 at halftime? 13-8 at halftime? And then you're probably finishing off the six-pack in the second half, depressed as can be. But you probably had some Broncos Country Pale Ales. And if not, you want to get some, or little chill coming this week, Henry. I think Thursday's game in Denver, the high's going to be like 50, but the game's in Kansas City. I think the high's also like 50 then and some rain. So you might want to switch over to the Vanilla Porter Jr. in honor of Nugget season. Get some Avalanche Amber Ale with the cold weather coming, and you can get it all over at our friends over at Breckenridge Brewery. Check them out, breckbrew.com, to find their beer locator to see where you can get the official beer of DNVR.
And also head on over to Foco because they've got a whole bunch of gear. I actually haven't looked at the website in a while. I'm excited to pull it up because I'm curious if they've got any new Broncos stuff. But they have just about everything. Like, they've got the pajamas, they've got like all sorts of different tennis shoes and sandals and Crocs and whatever else. Oh, see, like right there, there's a new Snoopy big head bobblehead that's Broncos. It's like Snoopy in a Broncos uniform. And that's the kind of stuff that you can find there. This is they call it crossbody bag. It seems like it's just a fanny pack, which people are allowed to wear. This is like a captain hat that has like a old Broncos logo on it. There's all sorts of good stuff. So if you're looking for any more Broncos gear, or if you know a Broncos fan and you got to get them like a birthday present, whatever, go over to Foco and make sure that you use the code DNVR because you'll get 10% off all non-presale items.
There we go. Go to Foco. Okay, Henry. The question.
It's just everybody. Like, there isn't one person. Like, you can't start 1-4 and just have like one person be to blame for it. Like, unless you got a quarterback out there throwing 10 picks, but like Vance Joseph's been terrible. Like, just about everybody individually on the defense has been bad. I mean, Nick Bonito is kind of the only bright spot, right? Like, you look all the way through, and I guess Pat got that pick, but he's had a really rough start to the season. Like, he's given up probably at least 100 passer rating, and I bet that pick probably brings it down. But there's no bright spots there. Like, Jaleel has been good. Marvin's been exciting, but he's fumbled. He's cost him more than he's helped him. Like,
Disagree with that, but
okay, yeah. I mean, there's just Russ has been fine, but he also has the fumble there at the end of the game. It's like that's a play that you just have to have. Like, if you're looking at batting average, he's been good, but you have to wait that fumble. The same thing against the Commanders. Like, you just need more plays from him. Like, there's nobody. Like, you can go to obviously Sean, like his team. You've got Vance, who's running that defense that's horrible. You've got George Paton, who chose most of the players. Like, you've got the owners who picked this group and decided to spend money where they spent money and all that sort of stuff. Like, it's everybody. Like, as Sean Payton said this summer, like, nobody has clean hands. Like, everybody screwed up. Everybody made mistakes. And I know there's whoever in the building was upset about it, who's like, well, I feel like no, like, that's just how it works. When you lose, and it's everybody's fault.
Specifically, though, with this team, that is right, Henry. And when I was thinking about it the past 12 hours, the answer that comes to mind is using Sean Payton's own words against him.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how his own words have really come back to bite him. There's dirt on everyone's hands, is what he said about last year's team. And there's dirt on his hands, on Vance Joseph's hands, on George Paton's hands, on the Walton Penner ownership group, because they went out and they trusted Sean Payton this offseason, and they gave him all of the resources. So, their trust does not look to be right in Sean Payton as of right now. Sean Payton has been the most disappointing part of this Broncos team for me, and it's not even close. I thought Vance Joseph was going to be a below-average defensive coordinator. George Paton, he's already had question marks going into this season. Russell Wilson has been a bright spot, and I want to get back to Russ in a minute, but he's not the main reason that the Broncos are 1-4, so I don't want to bring him up right now. But without a doubt, Sean Payton's been the most disappointing. Now, does that mean he's the one with the most blame on him? When you look at a defense that's given up the most yards in the NFL, when you look at a defense that's given up the most points in the NFL, when you look at a defense that's been historically bad in the running game, it's hard not to look at Vance and say he's not the biggest reason, but it's the biggest reason, not the only reason. And so you're right, Henry. You distribute blame to every single person. You point to a lack of talent. George Paton. I brought up the issues with George last year. I said if Nathaniel Hackett's going to be gone, George should be gone as well because just of how talent deficient the roster was. They decided to keep George. I think George is going to be gone after this season. And again, blame is everywhere, including the people that Sean Payton brought in this offseason. Mike McGlinchey, I mean, he has not been good this year. Zach Allen has pretty much been a disappearing act this year outside of a few key plays. Ben Powers, probably the brightest spot that the Broncos brought in this offseason, the biggest, most impressive player that they brought in this offseason. But still, you're batting 1 for 3 right now on your big free agents. Now, right now, you only have 5 games to evaluate. Things can turn around, but the players that this team has are not good enough. The coaching staff on offense and defense, in my opinion, are not doing, are not bringing the talent out of these guys. And then also, Sean Payton's management of this team has been poor up to this point. Not just as the offensive guy, he's had the offense bounce back, but as the head coach, game management has been an issue. Off the field issues have been an issue.
Like what?
With his comments telling, not just this past game, but telling players we're going to be anonymous donors and doing the exact opposite. That's not leadership right there. Don't do as I say, or don't do as I say, not as I do. And
I almost take it more as like it's like a college program. It's like the players don't talk. Like my job is to go talk, and that's changed now. Like it's more of like the old school college thing.
Yeah, this
like
isn't a college program though.
Exactly, but that's kind of how he runs things. Like he's trying to run guys in the ground. Like it's very much like we're working. You know, it's not.
We're working. No one's talking
Hackett's
except for me.
NFL.
I'm gonna go talk, and
it's like Nick Saban, you know, or Jimbo.
You're talking about all college people. Though.
Exactly, I know. But I think that's kind of
this is the NFL.
That's
That
what it
doesn't
reminds me of, though.
justify it, though. I know that's what he's trying to do, but it doesn't justify what he's doing.
Okay.
Yeah, and then just embarrassment. I think you can easily make a case, and I would make the case that these first 5 games have been more embarrassing than last year's first 5 games.
I mean, maybe
How?
because of expectations. But
How?
the
No, not
expectations
even
were even higher
expectations.
last year.
How?
They scored like 11 points a game at the start of the year.
They were 2-3.
I mean, yeah. Well, if we're talking about record, then yeah. But in terms of embarrassment,
everything comes into this.
Henry,
The Broncos lost by 50 points.
Yeah, but nobody's making jokes about them.
No one's making jokes about
Not
the
compared to
Broncos?
last year. Like everybody,
No.
remember that last year? Remember everybody saying "Let's
Henry,
ride."
that's what this week
Everybody
is going
was
to be.
saying,
It's
"Let's
going to
ride."
be a total
No, nobody
embarrassment for the
cares
Broncos.
enough.
Yes, they do
No, they
because
don't.
of Sean Payton's comments. They're going to be rubbing that in
We'll
his face.
see.
That's going to get a lot of
you'll
attention.
hear some this morning,
the
and that's it.
50-point loss was unbelievably
It was embarrassing.
They blew an 18-point lead to the
But
Commanders.
compared to Let's Ride and all
They only
that?
beat the Bears.
No,
Yes.
this isn't that bad. Last
Okay.
year was worse.
I think so.
Let's do a poll.
Yeah.
Can you poll it, Yaya? That's your job. Oh boy.
Thank you,
but going back
Yahir.
to free agents though, like you got exactly what you expected though. Like that's the thing. It's like Zach Allen, 1.5 sacks through 5 games, like 4 tackles for loss through 5 games. His career high in tackles for loss is 10. Like his career high is 5.5 sacks.
You didn't pay
Like,
Zach Allen to be this bad in run defense, though. You did not.
That's fair, but I mean anything that's quantifiable. Like he also has his first forced fumble of his career. Like you're kind of just getting what you expect from Zach Allen there.
I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think we really felt
He already
Zach
has-
Allen's presence until one play in Miami, and he only showed up
Yeah.
for that one play, which
But I
was
think that's-
that stop on 4th down, which was a good play. But I'm not feeling his presence at all.
Neither am I, but that's who he's been his entire career. Like that's just.
I don't think so.
Really?
That's not.
He already has 23 tackles, career highs 48.
That's not
like he's gonna blow that number out of the water. Like this is who he's been. Same thing with Mike McGlinchey. Like Mike McGlinchey, yeah, he can't. He's not strong enough. That's not fair. Like he's just not built right to stop bull rushes. Like guys get into his chest, they push him backwards, and that's what we've seen. Like he struggles in pass protection. Pass protection. That's what we've seen. He's made some good blocks in the running game. That's what we've seen. Like you're getting exactly what you expect, or at least exactly what I expected from these guys when you signed him in March.
I don't think so. I think Mike McGlinchey, when the Broncos brought him in, made him the second highest paid right tackle in the NFL.
Right, yeah.
And I'm not going to hold him to those expectations because you do overpay in free agency. So I was not expecting him to be a top right tackle. But throughout his career, he's been a borderline top 10 right
I don't
tackle.
think he has.
I think he has.
Okay.
And those are my expectations for him. So maybe we just had different expectations, but that's what I thought that the Broncos were getting in him. And he has had tons of penalties. And he probably leads a team in pre-snap penalties, which is absolutely inexcusable, especially for a veteran offensive lineman, the leader of your group, the highest paid guy in that room. So been disappointing there. And then I do think Ben Powers has probably been the guy that you hoped for.
But I mean, not these guys aren't what you hoped for, but they should have been about what you expect. Like again, that's to me like they're just doing exactly what I saw when I went through the tape and watched them last year.
Okay, well, I don't think so. I think Zach was better. Like I said, just non-existent outside of literally 2 plays, and that's not what a good defensive lineman does. A good defensive lineman. I'm not saying Zach Allen. I expected 15 sacks from him because that's not at all. I mean, his career high was 6.5 coming into this year. I wasn't expecting anything more than that, but you can't be this bad on. No one is doing their part against the run, and that includes Zach Allen. That includes the linebackers. That includes the outside linebackers.
And he's had last year he did grade out better against the run. Like Pro Football Focus had 67. Year before he was 45. Year before that's 45. Year before that's I don't think he is a good run defender.
Year though. Last year is what
the grade was better, but I still saw the same thing.
Just like you brought Ben Powers in last year because of last year, not because of the year before when he wasn't even really a starter, full-time starter.
But I still just look at these guys and they're doing, to me, the exact same thing that I saw when I went back and watched them last year. Like Zach Allen wasn't an impact player in Arizona. Like he wasn't. Like he was fine.
He was one of their best players, if not their best player. So he was an impact player.
He wasn't. Like, I just totally disagree. He was one of their best players, but that's because they didn't have any good defenders.
Doesn't that fall on Sean Payton and George Paton for bringing in these guys that they're paying top tier money to be top 3, top 5 in their positions?
Of course.
There aren't
at the
many,
end of the day, it's like they're not. It's the same thing with Russell Wilson.
But if your other option was just to hold on to the money and not spend it, unless it's just really hard to get good players in free agency.
Yeah, it is. And that's why you don't want to go through free agency. And that's why you can even say that the dirt is on more people's hands even further back than George Paton. And that's the reason why the Broncos have had to spend a lot of money is because they've been bad in the draft, not just for the past 2 or 3 years under George Paton, but the past 7 years under John Elway, and then you just don't have talent, so then you have to go out and overspend in free agency. But one of the things that you don't want to do is just keep doing that and overspending and overspending and overspending, because then you get yourself in bad contracts, and then you're up against the cap, and that just brings up a big conversation that we're going to have as the season goes along. What the hell do you do? At the trade deadline, do you try to release a lot, get rid of a lot of players to open up a lot of money to move on from Russell Wilson after this season? And before we move further, Henry, I do just want to touch on Russell Wilson really quick.
Yeah.
Because stats can be deceiving. I think the stats you're pointing to is Zach Allen, just a little bit deceiving. But Russell Wilson's stats, if you would have said at the beginning of the season, through 5 weeks, Russell Wilson's going to have a 67% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, passer rating of 106, and average 243 passing yards per game, you would have ran to the bank with that. You would have been thrilled. The Broncos would be 4-1, battling the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football for the division lead. And instead, it's not like that. Russell Wilson has not been the problem. He hasn't been the second problem. He hasn't been the third biggest problem with this team. He is far down on this list. But one of the things that I realized yesterday is Sean Payton does not trust Russell Wilson. And I think it's the way he calls plays and the plays that are at Russell Wilson's disposal. I don't think Sean Payton thinks that Russell Wilson's the answer either. I don't think Russell Wilson has raised all ships and raised the game of everyone around him like elite quarterbacks do. So I don't think that Russell Wilson so far has proven he's the answer, despite his stats being great.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, he's played up to his contract, but that's not like we had this conversation last week. Like that doesn't mean
See, I think that stats
you want to give it to him.
being a little deceiving though, but
Okay. Yeah. And my big thing, I mean, he's just lost in the game with 2 fumbles. Like those are 2 games that both times I thought that they were going to go win. Like I thought that they had those games, but he fumbled and he specifically lost them. So I think he actually does deserve quite a bit of blame because of the plays that he made in those big moments. Like that's just where you need him to step up, and he didn't do it. But yeah, there will be a lot of Russell conversations. The good news is I think he's probably tradable now, and that's that at least does something for you going into the offseason. You should be able to save some money.
well,
Real quick, Alexis with a great callback.
Yes.
Alexis, we love having you tune in with us. And Henry, speaking of people tuning in, let's dive into the comment section. I want to
Yes.
get people's reaction to what's going on. A
Oh,
lot
boy.
of people want to be heard from. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook. They are still giving you the chance to get $200 in bonus bets when you place a $5 bet in on the NFL. So, Henry, if you place a $5 bet on the Packers or the Raiders tonight, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets, which you can use on Thursday night for Broncos, Chiefs. You can use this weekend. So you got, how about this for football this weekend in Colorado? Broncos Thursday night,
Yep.
Buffs Friday night, Rams Saturday night.
Okay. I'm not
how about that?
watching the Rams on a Saturday
Oh,
night.
wow. Damn.
I'll watch the Rocky Mountain Showdown. That's my gift to the Rams.
I'm going to be in attendance at that game. So how
Really?
dare you? Watch your mouth,
Yikes.
Henry. You know what? You want to know something that's sad? I don't remember the channel, but when I was at the gym today, they put out the 7-day weather forecast.
Huh.
And
Yeah.
on Friday night, it said, go Buffs.
Yep.
On Saturday night, it said, go Rams. On
Oh.
Thursday night, it didn't say, go Broncos.
Because the Broncos aren't playing here. You don't need the weather for the game.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, touche. Thank you for that. Yes, that's a good realization.
Damn, these people always getting it wrong.
Still, have Go Broncos on Thursday.
Dude, go Broncos every day. Why not?
But head to the App Store now. Use the go to the App Store, download DraftKings Sportsbook, and use the code DNVR to turn $5 into $200 in bonus bets over at DraftKings Sportsbook. And you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, licensee partner Golden Nugget, Lake Charles, Louisiana. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Henry, let's dive into our DraftKings Sportsbook pick of the week. What is catching your eye?
Oh boy. I don't even know off the top of my head. Give me a second.
Well, I'll just dish out one right now. The Broncos Chiefs over under. What would you guess it is for Thursday night?
Damn. I mean, that should be a lot of points, you would think. I guess the Chiefs defense is pretty good. I would say it's at 46.5.
Okay, close. 50.
Okay.
Give
it
me
was
the
even
over.
higher than that. Okay.
Give me the over. I just
Oof.
mentioned how bad this Broncos defense is.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs are going to have no problem scoring. And I also think that the Broncos will put up enough points to cover that over.
Okay. That's some optimism. I don't know about that. I worry about the Chiefs defense. Oh, I'll take honestly, I'm tempted to take like Chiefs minus 520. Just put the mortgage on it.
Chiefs minus 520.
Yeah, that's the money line. Just like
You're going to take a bet that's
Like-
minus 520
I mean, honestly,
odds?
at this point, it's
what
tempting.
are Jaleel's rushing yards? He has to get more touches.
They
right?
won't have those up.
Yeah, we don't know the rushing yards yet.
Yeah, I mean, you could call it the Packers tonight, but really, If you're making some parlays, throw that. Like, I wonder. So let's see. You take the Packers tonight plus 110. Throw the Chiefs in, it gets it to plus 150. Throw another leg, and it'll just kind of like grow. There's no way the Broncos win this game. There's just no way.
I so wish that I could change my prediction for tonight's game because I picked the Packers to win when Garoppolo was out, and now Garoppolo's back. I think the Raiders are going to win this game.
Really?
Yep.
I still think it's the Packers, but I'm not putting any money on either side.
That's fair. Just
this is
going to
be like that Jets Broncos game. Yep.
All right, that's our DraftKings Sportsbook pick of the week.
Yeah, and also make sure you become a member because you get a whole bunch of awesome perks. You can come down here and either like watch a game or just hang out. You'll get 15% off your entire bill if you're a DNVR diehard. You also get discounts on tickets to tailgates, those sorts of things. You get discounts, 20% off all merch always, 20% off events, access to a discard. You get a free shirt every year. There's a whole bunch of really cool perks. So definitely make sure that you join us as a DNVR diehard.
Absolutely. We really appreciate everyone tuning in. Like we say every single year, the Broncos suck, but you guys don't. And we really appreciate everyone rolling with us. Someday they'll be better. Someday.
Or they'll just move.
Or Sunday.
Things go bad for a couple of years.
Jeez Louise.
I mean, hey, I'm not making any promises about the Broncos.
No, I can promise you that. That would be the worst decision
I don't think
that
they're moving
this ownership group of any sports team could do. The Broncos aren't moving. That's one thing I can guarantee.
Okay.
I had this conversation with my wife last night, though. I was like, she was like, well, they'll be better at some point. And I was like,
I don't know.
I hope. And she said, well, isn't every team good at some point? And I said, well, the Broncos have already been good.
Exactly.
So maybe they've already had their good
I mean,
luck.
that's the thing, though, is like, I think everybody's on the same page. It's kind of time to start fresh. So best case scenario, see you in 2026. Like, you're pushing it down the road.
2026.
That's a 3-year process, and you don't really have an option.
And that's kind of the uncomfortable realization of these first 5 games, right? Is again, we've said it so many times, and it just keeps sinking in after each losses. Last year, it was a quarterback away. This year, it was a coach away. And now it's like everything away.
And that's the
and
other
some
thing
people
is,
are already losing confidence. Some people have already lost confidence in Sean Payton. Some people have already lost confidence in Russell Wilson. So even those 2 issues that we think the Broncos fixed might not even be fixed.
Yeah, when everybody wants to trade everybody away and build up picks and all that. It's like, yeah, go ahead, trade Mike Purcell and Kareem Jackson and Josie Jewell and whoever else. Like, if you want to load up on 6th and 7th round picks and build a team around that, have fun, because you have about 3-4 players you could actually get something for, and it'd be painful to get rid of them.
Well, and we're going to talk about that pain tomorrow and who those 3 or 4 players are and how much you can actually get for those guys. We're talking Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Justin Simmons,
Pat Surtain.
Potentially. Also want to pick your brain about what a Russ trade would look like in the offseason if that happens. So we're going to talk about it all. But really quick, I don't think you're trading all of those other guys in order to get 6th and 7th round picks. I think you're trading them to dump the salary. And you might
don't even save anything.
Yeah, you might be picking up a lot of that salary for this year, but next year, maybe not. So we'll get into that tomorrow. Hit us with a thumbs up if you're tuning in. Again, it really helps us out, and we appreciate everyone rolling with us. But let's hop in to the comment section. We're going to hit the super chats first, then we will get to the comments on the website. First one coming in from Blow It All Up. Think that's about the Broncos season?
Yes, probably.
I think so.
I would guess so.
Who hired Vance Joseph? Who came up with absurd preseason rules? Who ran his mouth? Sean Payton. And oh my goodness, you mentioned it, Henry, you touched on it. The Jets have been understandably and rightfully so having a field day on social media with Sean Payton. And you're right, blow it all up. When I put the blame on Vance Joseph for this bad defense, you are also putting it directly on Sean Payton. He hired Vance. And then also with just how bad it seems like the communication has been on defense, how bad gap assignments and gap integrity are, that still is coaching and still ultimately falls under Sean Payton. So I'm right there with you. Blow it all up.
Yeah. Only one of those things is like that bad, I think, though.
What?
The hiring Vance Joseph. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't care what if you want the guys to wear uniforms on the silent preseason game, that's fine. Run your mouth. Like, if he's the one who has to take the beating for it, you know.
And
I don't think it. I don't know. I don't think it impacted the game. I know you do, but
Yeah, I do, considering they were saying it right before the game.
Yeah.
Logan comes in and says, here's a thought. Bill Belichick is not going to be there as a coach next year. Bring him in as general manager and let him and Sean change the culture. The Penners can open the vault for him.
yeah, I mean, I'd rather have Sean Payton than Bill Belichick
Why?
at this point. Just the offense. I just trust the offense more. Like modern football, especially if you're, I don't know. We'll get into all this, but if you're trying to go after a rookie quarterback, Sean Payton is about the best possible situation that you could put him with, I think.
I think if you've lost confidence in Bill Belichick, which I totally understand why
Yeah.
people have and a lot of people are out, I don't know how you have confidence in Sean Payton right now. Sean Payton has been without Drew Brees for one season before this year, and he went 9-8. Bill Belichick, obviously, tons of success, way more success than Sean Payton ever
Also
had.
with a way better quarterback.
But 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. But since Brady left the Patriots went 7-9, 10-7, 8-9.
Yep.
It's pretty much like exactly what Sean did in that one season
Yep.
without.
It's like the beginning of the Broncos slide.
What?
Beginning of the Broncos slide
What do you mean?
after the Super Bowl. Have like, what was it, 9-8, and then just kind of start falling off,
Right,
just
right,
like the
right.
Broncos. Yeah.
Now, Patriots are 1-4 this year. The Broncos
Yep.
are 1-4 this year. So if you're out and you're giving the Patriots so much crap and Belichick so much crap, it's literally the exact same thing that's happening with Sean right now. Sean
Yeah.
hasn't had like this massive amounts of success that Bill Belichick hasn't. In fact,
Yeah.
it's obviously the opposite. But especially without their Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Greg S. says, y'all are the reason I know everything about the Broncos. Started watching in 2020, and Sternad was drafted here, and I really need to salute y'all for being a highlight the last few years. And we love you, Greg. This is why we do it. We have such a cool community that even when there's losses,
Yep.
we can disagree. Henry can say ridiculous statements that I can
I didn't
easily
say anything
disagree with.
ridiculous.
And then we also get your feedback, which is very important to us. We love you guys all. Okay, next one from Broker says, let's pretend you're the general manager. Who are you trading right now to embrace the rebuild and finally turn this ship around? And do we build around Mims in our running back group? Stay blessed, DNVR. We'll really get into specifics tomorrow,
Yeah.
but on offense, you're building around Marvin Mims and Jaleel McLaughlin.
Yeah, and even like building around is like a loose term. Like that's
They're part of
They're
your
not
future.
cornerstones or anything.
They're part of your future,
Exactly.
and no one is untouchable. If we'll get into exactly what it would
Yeah.
take to trade Pat Surtain, but there's an offer out there that I'm sure would move the needle for the Broncos. And then on offense, like if someone offers you a first-round pick for Marvin Mims, you're definitely thinking about
exactly.
it. So
You'd pull the trigger in a heartbeat.
no one is off limits. You don't really, the only people that you don't trade on a team when you're going through a rebuild like this is an elite quarterback. And you're probably
Yep.
not going through a rebuild if you have an elite quarterback.
Yeah, I ran through last night, and there's like 9 guys who like I would want to keep. Like I'd be
Okay.
like, this is a guy like Pat Surtain, Nick Benito, like guys who you're like, okay, this could be like a piece that helps you out long term in like a big way. And then there's about 5 guys who you have to keep just contractually.
Okay.
But even that includes like Russell Wilson, and like if you could probably get out of that, but I decided to put him in the have to keep him category with that contract. So I mean,
I'm excited to hear those 5 guys
Yeah.
and those 9 guys tomorrow.
they're just anybody's available. Like that's a total 14 guys out of 53.
And that's why in the past couple of years, the Broncos have made, they moved on from Emmanuel Sanders. They traded Demaryius Thomas. They made one move at the deadline every couple of years. Last year, it was Bradley Chubb. This year, it should be a few guys. I mean, it should be a lot. We
Yeah.
should see a lot of trades.
Just
come
depends on
down.
the offers too, because
Of course.
I mean, you look the likely ones are probably like Bowles, Sutton, Judy, Simmons. But all of those guys you could trade in the offseason too. Like there really aren't.
You get more now though.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, unless teams say like, Jerry, you have like 70 receiving yards or whatever this season. What are we giving up? Like you might want to just hold on and like with all these guys, see if you can win a couple games and try to put a little shine on them and get more.
Potentially, but yeah.
In terms of like guys who you'd have to trade now, it's like the expiring contracts like Kareem and Josie and Purcell and like K1's hurt, but if he gets healthy in time, and
let's dive into these.
Congrats
tomorrow.
on your 7th round picks.
Yep, no, it's true. Yeah, you're not. There's a reason the Broncos aren't going to get much in returns because they don't have a lot of good players on the team anymore.
Exactly, and nobody wants to bring in some of the stink at the moment.
It's true. Stephen Choley says, this is a roster of losers. Nobody on this team knows how to win. Trade everyone, and I mean everyone. Why waste PS2's career with this franchise will be a joke for years to come still.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be just like Champ Bailey, really. That whole thing where you bring him in and you never quite get him over the hump, and at the end, they finally got him to the Super Bowl, and you'd hope, was that like year 12 for Champ? Mm-hmm. So like 9 years from now, you get Pat there, but I mean, that's the way it goes. The thing, like, if the Broncos would be crazy to say, you know what, they just kind of have to be sad sacks to say like, you know what, we're gonna be bad. We just got to do what's right for Pat. No, if you can keep Pat around, you keep Pat around. If Pat wants out, there's not much you can do about it, and so you let him out. And it worked for Jalen Ramsey. He did the same thing and went and won a Super Bowl.
If they don't think that they can win in Pat Surtain's window, which is the next 10 years, you fire Sean Payton right now. If you don't think he's the right coach to potentially win the next 10 years, everyone should be gone.
Why even field a team for the next 5 years? Start that rebuild in 2028.
Right. Yeah. So that's why you would keep Pat around. And we'll really talk about him tomorrow because he's the most interesting thing. Yeah, he's 23 years old. Literally, he could still have elite level of play for the next decade. But like I mentioned too, there's a price for everyone, especially when it's not a quarterback.
Well, I was talking to Mace about this part in particular yesterday. Like, if you trade Pat, you don't do it now. You do it this offseason, kind of like the Panthers when they traded DJ Moore. So, like, if the Broncos wind up in a situation where it's like, oh, they've got the number 6 pick, you want to get up to number 2 to get Drake May, then you have the asset to convince a team to, like, let you move up. Like, that's kind of your biggest piece, and you should save your biggest piece for when there's certainty and make sure that you go get a quarterback. Yeah,
man. And then
and hopefully you just don't
a couple of
need
months
to.
later, if they do that, we'll hear the Broncos are looking for an elite cornerback.
Oh, yeah.
Just like the Raiders with Khalil Mack after they got rid of him, they're like, it's hard to find a pass rusher. The Panthers, after they traded DJ Moore, now they're saying, oh, we need a number 1 wide receiver.
And then
my goodness.
3 years after that, you're either going to hear, wow, I think the Broncos are finally kind of back on track, or you're going to hear, oh, nope, Drake May didn't have it, or Caleb Williams didn't have it. Time to get a new quarterback. 50-50, one way or the other.
My goodness. Small Health Jet Petroleum says, Jets flying mile high again. You hear? Why you do that?
Paid $2.
Okay, we read it.
You can do something.
Good for you. Tyler Curl says, at the airport heading back to Idaho. I had a great time in Denver despite the loss. Jaleel is electric. Also had a blast at the DNVR Bar on Saturday for the bus game. Y'all are the best. Thank you so much, Tyler. Yeah, I mean, I see what this bar is like with good teams, the Buffs, the Nuggets, the Avs, and how much fun it is and how cool it is for everyone in Denver to come here, be here, celebrate. And there's just no excitement with Broncos games. And it's like, damn, it sucks. I can't wait.
Could you imagine what Thursday would be if the Broncos won yesterday?
Oh, my God.
They just pull off that drive at the end.
My
You're saying you end the streak against the Chiefs and you're 500. You've officially saved your season.
The Buffs are the Broncos if the Broncos knew how to finish games.
Was there still a good crowd for the Buffs this Saturday? Okay. I wondered. Now that they're kind of like out of the... I don't know.
I think Saturday was a huge game for them to win.
Definitely. They needed that one.
Because now you bounce back. You're way above 500. You hit the over already, which I know you cashed in on, Henry.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait for the Broncos to eventually be good. I thought it was going to be last year. I thought it was going to be this year.
Yep.
Who knows when? All right, next one coming in from
gonna be
this
a while.
blind swordsman says, I am more embarrassed than last year, bar none. Here is $5 to soften the blow. Thank you, the blind swordsman, not just for the $5, but for agreeing with me. I appreciate it. Yeah, here, did you ever get that poll made for me and not Henry? Oh, wow. He didn't make it for me or you, Henry.
Wow.
Damn.
It's still going. Once we get to the,
okay.
let's finish the super chats and then we'll get to
so
the,
you did get it going.
Yeah, of
so you
course.
lied.
Yeah, I'm a
did.
liar.
Great. Is your mic on?
Yeah.
Good.
Or am
Are you
I
lying about that?
Maybe. Ask the people.
YRC says, man, when are we going to start Jarrett at quarterback? Sometime.
Well, I mean, once you say we're just trying to lose. Because Jarrett Stidham.
I don't know.
like-
You're
So
doing a great job.
Thursday?
You're doing a great job with Russell Wilson losing right
Yeah.
now. Again, not. I think you actually might think it's more of Russ's fault
Yeah.
than I do, but you're 1-4 with Russ right now.
Yeah, like I'm high on
Once
like.
you want to start losing, what do you mean, Henry? They are losing.
Oh yeah, but like when you say like we don't have any interest in trying to win, like then that's when you put in Jarrett Stidham.
I mean, the Broncos are at that point. You said the season's over, and I agree with you.
But wanting to lose is to me a separate step. Because most teams, even when the season's over, they say like we're still trying to build momentum. It's rare that there's teams that come out. There's one or two a year who say like, okay, we're just trying to lose now.
No teams ever come out and say that.
We'll never say it, but like intentionally,
See, I think
it's like pull guys. and
I
all
actually think you brought in Jarrett Stidham because Sean Payton could see him being the future quarterback. In fact, he actually said that, I believe, at the owners' meetings. It was like, Jarrett, very intrigued what he's gotten. I don't just view him as a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
So I think unless a dramatic turnaround happens, which is not going to happen, if you want a 5-game sample size at least. So I think we're going to see Jarrett Stidham a lot this year.
I disagree. I think you want Russ to be tradable. Like you just keep him going, doing what he's doing. Like
Let's talk about tomorrow. Let's talk about
Okay.
what that trade would look like.
It's
and
easy.
If any team would be willing to do that.
give him 2 years, $38 million a year, and then the Broncos could do what they did with Randy and eat some of that. Because otherwise they have to pay all that money. And so any dollar you save is a dollar you don't have to pay to cut him. So even if you cut that down by $10 million a year, you're still saving the other $40 million that you don't have to pay him. So you might as well. Yeah.
And
We'll
I
see.
think Sean's going to want to evaluate Jarrett. So we disagree on that, and that's
Yep.
okay. That's okay. Denny says, main problem, no dog leaders among the players and coaches. No Kubiak, Manning, DeMarcus Ware types. Peyton can't seem to rally the troops. No one is saying they'd run through a brick wall for him. I mean, so far through the 1-4 start, that is true. It is a little easier when you're winning in order to rally the troops and get people going. But I totally see where you're coming from, Denny. And I got to say, I talked to someone last night, and they asked me, man, what's it like being in that locker room after this loss? And honestly, Henry, it's not that depressing. Because
You didn't think so?
It's the same
Okay.
old shit. I mean, it's the same thing. Losing has absolutely seeped in
Yeah.
to this locker room where
nobody was like smiling or anything though.
no, but did it feel more depressing?
Like nobody was like slamming things into lockers or
Right. Yeah, I want to
Yeah.
see that when it's
Oh,
1-4,
okay.
when you lose to the Jets, when it's an
Okay.
embarrassment. Like, I don't need to see that, but I'm saying that it's no different just because this
Yeah.
is what the Broncos have been. Like, that locker room last night, and you can disagree with me, was no more depressing than it's been
no.
for the first other 4 games of the season.
I mean,
for
I
it.
wouldn't think this one would be more depressing though, I guess. Like
I think it just
a loss
feels
is
like
a loss.
it feels like status quo,
I mean, definitely.
for
I mean,
this
it
team.
is. Yeah, it absolutely is.
and I don't think it's that
Yeah.
depressing.
Another
of a
thing, like
place.
there is no Peyton Manning or DeMarcus Ware on this team. That is very clear. Like those are Hall of Famers who are like great leadership skill, all that sort of stuff.
That's what you.
But yeah,
thought
I mean,
you were getting with Russell Wilson.
Oh, you didn't think Peyton Manning though.
You thought Hall of Fame quarterback.
I mean,
you thought a
fringe
leader.
Hall of Fame quarterback, not like one of the greatest of all time.
Yes,
like
but
closer to Phillip Rivers than Peyton Manning.
I think that's revisionist history a
You
little
really?
bit. Russell Wilson
Really?
had the second most wins in the NFL history in the first 10
Yeah.
years when he joined the Broncos. 1 game shy of Peyton
I don't
Manning.
know. We
He has,
disagreed at
like,
the time, now
the
that I
most
think of it, too.
passing touchdowns in the first 10
Yeah.
years of his career.
We did disagree at the time.
It's also Russell Wilson was like, oh, how could he never have gotten an MVP vote? If you would have said that this
Yeah.
year, they'd be like, yeah, it makes sense. He hasn't gotten an
Exactly.
MVP vote.
Meanwhile, Peyton Manning probably just about every year was getting like there's a different
I'm not saying
tier
he's
there.
Peyton Manning. There's no doubt about
You
that.
said that's
but
what you thought they were getting, but yeah,
He's
it's
close,
fine.
No,
he's
Hall of
closer
Fame.
to DeMarcus Ware status than Peyton Manning, in my opinion.
Well, DeMarcus Ware, first ballot Hall of Famer,
Exactly.
as well as Peyton
I
Manning.
think,
There is a
I
difference,
think DeMarcus
yeah.
Ware is also not maybe like he's maybe top 5. Is he top 5 all-time pass rusher?
Probably not.
No.
And neither is Russell Wilson. Peyton Manning is a top 3 quarterback all time. That's kind of where I see them.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
exactly.
All right, 2 more super chats, I believe. One coming in from Miss 88 Rule says, I'd rather get the second pick and get Marvin Harrison Jr.
Real quick on the last one though, my point was if Pat, it's all on Pat. Like it's time for Pat to step up and like speak. Like I even talked to Jonathan Cooper about it and said like, yeah, I know like Pat said that's like the first time he'd said anything in the locker room since Bama. He's like, yes, tell him he needs to do that more. Like that to me, like it's those guys. And honestly, like Cooper might be on that list too. Nick Benito is trending toward being on that list. I mean, he's older than Pat. Like, why not? Like, it is kind of time for those young guys to kind of step up and take over and say, like, we're sick of this shit. Because right now, they're just there's kind of a, I don't know if it's a leadership void because that's Justin Simmons on the defensive side of the ball, Kareem on the side of the ball. But I'd imagine that kind of that message has gotten stale from that group over the past 4 or 5 years.
In order to do that, then you need to move on from those people that you think the message has got stale from. Not because the message has got stale, but if you think you can get something valuable for Justin Simmons, then that can open up a new leadership opportunity. Literally, Justin is a captain right now. So you could give that captainship to Pat Surtain, but also Pat spoke,
you got to earn it, though.
Pat spoke with the Bears game. Maybe he did earn it there, and clearly it worked. But there are just guys that are elite players that just aren't that type of leader. And I'm not saying Pat isn't that type and that he doesn't want to be, but if a guy doesn't want to be that, you don't want to force him into that role because then it's unnatural. Demaryius Thomas, he wasn't going to be that guy, yet an elite player, a leader in his own way, but not a vocal leader. And Champ, I believe he wasn't the rah-rah guy getting everyone hyped. He was a leader in his own way. So I'm not saying this in any negative way to Pat. If he's not that type and doesn't want to be that type, you don't want to force him into that role, though.
Yeah, you don't want to force him, but you want him to kind of take it upon himself. You know, that's like, there is, I don't know, like leadership training almost like it kind of sounds lame. Sounds like some corporate thing, but that is like a thing, is like learning how to be a leader, and that is valuable. And like, it's, some people are that way, some people aren't, but it is very, 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 very valuable for your team to be that guy. Like, the team needs that guy, and it needs some of its best players to be that guy. And right now, there just aren't very many best players. And so, I don't know. Like, not to like slander Champ or anything, but maybe things would have played out differently in his career if he was more of that like vocal, rah-rah, like leader, like fire everybody up type guy. Like, it's just, there's no way to know, but you need that from your best players.
I just don't think that you can force that on people.
You can't. You can't force it. You have to take it.
I don't think that was ever held against Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah, but that's because they had Peyton and they had DeMarcus and they had those guys already. Like you need them.
They did not have Peyton early in DT's career. They did not have DeMarcus early
Tebow did have
in Peyton's career. They
they didn't win a Super Bowl.
They
though.
lost Demaryius. They also lost Peyton, and Demaryius was still here. And again,
and what happened?
That's just
they were bad.
Yeah, but again, I'm not going to tell someone to go to a leadership class.
Definitely.
So
Definitely.
I just think clearly the Broncos need more leaders on this team.
Definitely. And you need your best players. You got to have some leaders in there.
I think you should go to a podcasting class.
Oh, boy. Thanks, Yaya.
Wow. Okay, we got another one. Oh, yeah, the Marvin Harrison Jr. one. Oh, man, it would be great to have him, but I don't know if getting a wide receiver with the number 2 overall pick would be the best use of resources for this Broncos team, especially if Caleb Williams or Drake May is sitting on the board, which one of them will be unless they decide to go back to college.
Yeah, I mean, you can't pass on those guys, but that is a freak player. Like, the idea in that world would be like you're running it back with Russ and trying to kind of replicate what the Dolphins do, which I don't think is the craziest thing in the world, especially if you don't have.
How is that doing what the Dolphins do?
Just like those speedy receivers, having him and Mims, and you're kind of building in that way.
Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't like
he's not fast,
but that's not his game. That's not like his
like he's
number
not Tyreek
one
Hill, but
thing, right? I don't think
but that's why he's so good.
don't think you're the Dolphins though. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not that type of receiver.
Interesting. I mean, I think he's fairly similar to like the Jalen Waddle type of guy. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think he's more of an all-around guy insteed of like.
I mean, he
just pure
definitely.
speed.
He has
a little bit
everything.
more like what's it called?
Marvin Harrison.
JJ?
Marvin Harrison Sr.
No. To Justin Jefferson.
Right.
Kind of more all around, has that speed,
I agree.
but does a little bit of
agree.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they expect a 4.3 from him. He's been clocked at 23.5 miles per hour. Like that's
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you're building the Dolphins offense with that.
Okay.
Okay, a couple more super chats, and I do want to hit the comments on the website. T Green says, do you think the rumors are having an effect on the wide receivers' effort? Also, why such a big performance drop from Alex and Josie? So Orlando, who was on the show, tweeted about it, talked about it. A lot of other people who watched the game were talking about it, that specifically Courtland Sutton's effort was not there on key third downs. I believe Ryan also said that on multiple key third downs that Courtland was jogging or even walking during some of them. I don't give a damn what trade rumors are going around about you.
Yep.
You play because the Broncos are still paying that paycheck of yours right now. So I think if effort has dropped, that's a total shame. That also has Sean Payton already lost the locker room. But also, you get that guy off the field if that's happening. Because Marvin Mims was sitting on the sideline when you needed a big play. I have to imagine the reason he wasn't playing was because of the 2 fumbles earlier. Sean took the fumble, the reverse fumble, said that was not Marvin Mims' fault. The punt return was. If Marvin Mims, the returner, should not be held against Marvin Mims, the receiver, on holding on to the ball. I think those are different players when you're evaluating them. Marvin has not fumbled the ball as a wide receiver. And then also you have Adam Troutman on the field when you need a big play above Marvin Mims. What are we doing here?
Well,
I thought
that's
that
just
was
the structure
terrible
of the
coaching.
offense, though. Like
no. When you need
absolutely is.
playmakers on the field, when you have your last 2 drives and you need big plays, that should be Marvin Mims, not Adam Troutman. Or if Courtland Sutton's not giving full effort, like a lot of people said yesterday, get him off the field and put your second-round pick Marvin Mims, who gives full effort out
your
there.
structure, offensive structure, should allow your best players to be
100%.
Yeah, it's just teams don't run 4 receiver packages very often. Like, it's definitely more common now than before, and you probably only have so many of those. And so I don't know what they have installed. Like, that's
Adam Troutman is not a staple of this offense.
But typically you have a tight end on the field for every play that you design.
He was spread out wide.
Teaching him
he was spread out wide.
And that's what tight ends do half the time, though. Like, that's still a tight end.
That's a coaching error. That's a big time coaching mistake.
I can get that.
If you're going to be stubborn and say, I need to make sure that I have 3 wide receivers and a tight end out on the field.
They might not have the play, though.
What?
They probably don't have all that many plays with 4 receivers on the field.
Well, then get some, because you're always down at the middle of the game. How do you not have plays? Yes, I totally disagree. Sean has plenty of 4 wide receiver packages.
If you want a big body also in the Troutman position, you have Courtland Sutton, who either way, Troutman's not doing anything. Put him there and then just give the other spot to Marvin.
I just thought it was shameful that Marvin wasn't on the field, whether it was for Troutman, whether it was for Courtland, especially if Courtland's effort wasn't there.
And that's the other thing is, like, if that's true, like, horrible, obviously, but I still haven't gone back through the game, and I can't really speak to Courtland right now.
And 2 more super chats. Aces says, time to move on from George Paton and Russ. There's going to be so many changes in the next couple of weeks. And then also in the next couple of months, and specifically the next couple of months when the season's over. YRCD Dow says, they just need to fire Vance and start a stadium. Start Stidham.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think we will see both of those happen before the season's over.
Huh?
Do you think Stidham plays at all this year, barring injury for us? Which I hope is touching wood. I hope that doesn't happen.
I mean, there's probably a scenario where you give him like the last game, but I'm not sure what exactly that is. Oh, you know what it is? It's the Derek Carr thing. It's the same as last year where the Raiders didn't want Carr to get hurt because that changes the guarantees in his contract. It wouldn't change guarantees for Russ, but it would change whether he's tradable. So, like, if you wind up with, ACL, let's touch wood when we say things like that. Like those are the that could all of a sudden mean that you're taking on another $40 million in dead cap if you're planning to move on from him. So, yeah, I expect you do see Stidham because they rest Russ so that they can try to trade him.
Yeah, and how did that work out for Josh McDaniels? It did not. They had to cut him. They weren't able to trade him.
Yeah.
Don't follow Josh McDaniels and what he does. I think starting Jarrett Stidham for 1 or 2 games really doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't change anything.
Get a big enough sample size, but that's a bigger conversation that we will certainly be having and certainly be disagreeing on, which I think is probably healthy at this point.
Maybe.
You don't think so?
I don't know.
Okay, let's hop into the comments on the website. Jersey Bronco says, boys, Joke, joke, instead of the
boy.
Jets, you know.
Yeah.
Let's get to some of the best punchlines of the day. 1, McGlinchey was manhandled all game. Meanwhile, backup tackles get Zach clean for most of the game. 2, our best offensive playmakers are rookies who aren't getting enough catches with the ball. Yeah, I mean, again, just criminal. Marvin Mims, a career high, 20 snaps yesterday. I think that's just horrible. 3,
He didn't do anything.
he was not given opportunities.
Okay.
3, is Russ afraid? I think 1 target.
Yeah, 4-yard catch.
Yeah, 4-yard catch.
But that's not anything to like. You have to be open to have targets, for example. And again, I haven't gone back through. Like targets, it isn't just like, we want to give him an opportunity. You know, like you have to be open.
Yeah.
You have to put yourself in that situation. I'm not sure. I haven't gone back through yet.
Marvin Mims is a guy that absolutely should get 5 targets a game at the least, I think.
Maybe, yeah.
Says 3, is Russ afraid to throw, or can our overrated receivers not get open? Looks like the receivers quit, and Russ looks scared. Like I said earlier, I think it was a combination of four units, people. Russ did hold on to the ball too long. The receivers not getting open. The offensive line not protecting for Russ. And then also Sean Payton not drawing up the right plays.
Yeah. Yeah, and my only pushback would be, like, again, the way the Jets defended things wasn't, like, conducive to you trying to get the ball to the receivers a bunch. Like, it's conducive to the run game, and that's where when they did try to open things up a little bit more and try to, like, they kind of just played right into the Jets' hands instead of saying we've been running. I think at that point 7.3 yards per carry, like, just they're giving you the running game. Just take the running game, and so that's what it is to me. And again, with Mims, it's you're not throwing the ball deep. What do you want Marvin Mims for? You know,
and he's
at the
a
end of the game is
playmaker. I
different.
want the ball in his hands. That's what I want. And then additionally, again, if I'm the Chiefs, if I'm the Packers in 2 weeks, I'm doing the exact same thing that the Raiders and that the Jets did, because the Broncos aren't showing that they will take advantage of what they're giving them.
And again, but from a Broncos perspective, you'd say, please let us just run the ball over and over again.
But they don't
let
say
us
that.
make these easy throws and do it. I mean, yeah, they did for the first half, but then they got away from it. And those 3 drives, there was like 3 plays that should have been runs instead of passes, and things might have played out differently.
And then how about this? His 4th point is Sauce is off the field. Let's run some garbage play. They were legit on their 5th string cornerback, and we can't get a pass game rolling. Got to take advantage of that.
Yeah, you also just can't fumble. I mean, yeah. I do like the idea of running a misdirection play when you've got more backups on the field. Like, it just seems like it's more likely that you're going to get something open and go. But yeah, I mean, it didn't work. It was a bad decision. That's just how it goes.
And then how about this one? He says 5. I'm pretty sure I heard Robert Saleh say, stay humble after the handshake at the end of the game. I hope it is true. At least he can back up what he says with results on the field. I've heard this rumor floating around. I haven't personally heard it for myself.
Most people said he actually said stay healthy.
That's an interesting thing to say, too.
Sort of. I mean,
because eating all that beef after you got destroyed.
Well, I mean, like his team. Yeah, okay. Thanks, yeah.
That's still, I mean, when you say like 4 words to the guy, you probably say good game, stay healthy. It's fast. That's interesting.
Stay
like,
humble
good luck,
sounds a lot more reasonable in the situation.
Oh, man, that would be something else. That would be wild. And he wraps it up by says, time for some hard truths. Sean Payton may not be as great as we thought, but I don't think it's 100% his fault. This roster is not good. This Band-Aid has been rotting and festering for 7 years. Rip it off. Trade anyone of value who can clear cap off the books and draft Caleb. That would get the first pick, or Drake May. We are not a rookie quarterback boy, but we have to make some hope for the future. Sorry for the long comment. Much love from Jersey.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, has Sean made mistakes? Yeah, definitely. But also, like, the offense is looking better, and they're just, I mean, there isn't enough talent. Like, I'm not sure who would come in, and all of a sudden this team is, like, 3-2 at this point, you know? Like, you just look through and, like, what are the strengths of this team? Like, it's not the defensive line. It's not the outside linebackers. It's not the inside linebackers. It's probably not the safeties, although we haven't seen kind of this is kind of first game back with Justin and Kareem, so maybe that could be a strength. More likely, you're pretty average there. Corner is definitely not a strength. Offensive line, not a strength. Like I think it's probably fine, but like there's just no strengths.
Your guards are probably your strength.
Yeah, maybe.
The least valuable position on the field is your strength. Oh, boy. DK says, I think the worst part about the past 2 seasons isn't the losing. We've been dealing with losing for the better part of a decade now. The worst part is being the laughingstock of the league. This team is just one big meme at this point, and to make it even worse, nothing the team does seems to help. They bring in Russ, Payton, spend big money in free agency, and somehow get even worse. This team has issues much deeper than I think any of us realize.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. That's why, like, I think a lot of people look at it as like, well, just go get Caleb Williams. And that's kind of like, there's your plan. It's like, no. That is step 1 of the plan. You go get that guy, and then you have to do the hard work, which is figuring out how to actually build a functional roster from nothing. Because you look at the teams that actually compete for championships, and they've got Pro Bowlers all over the place. Like they'll have 6, 7 Pro Bowlers. Broncos just don't have that. Like they're not even close to that. Like in a perfect world, Nick Benito turns into one of those guys. You've got Pat, and behind that, like I haven't seen, like, it's been fun to watch Jaleel. It's been really fun, but it also feels a lot like Phil Lindsay. And with a running back, if we're talking 2026 is when hopefully you're kind of back to being a competitive football team, being like expecting to make the playoffs, that sort of situation. I mean, Jaleel's probably not around then. Like that's
Phil would have been cut in the same time.
Exactly. Like that's just the way things play out for running backs. And so you just don't have a lot. That's why you don't build around them, and there just isn't a lot to build around, and finding guys to build around is not an easy thing to do.
So you need an offensive line for this rookie quarterback. You need wide receivers.
Yeah.
You may need a tight end. Greg Dulcich, right now, I can't count on moving forward.
No.
Hamstring injuries.
When I went through yesterday, I was like, he's like a really good tight end too. No, maybe not even really good. Like that's the role that he should fill, is like on passing downs, he's your tight end. When you split a guy out, like he should almost never be lined up in line. Like he basically hasn't been in his career. He's only played in the slot essentially. Like that's the role that he can hold.
Yep.
And if he does it really well, then maybe that changes. But yeah, there's nothing really to build around.
Nash Bronco. The season is over. This team needs a deeper culture shift than anyone realized. I think I'm finally convinced that this roster and staff needs a clean sweep. How the heck is this defense so bad if Vance Joseph didn't change the scheme from last year? The run defense was questionable last year, but not this bad. There's a lack of effort and urgency from the players, and this reflects poorly on the coaches as well. I'm at a loss as a fan. This isn't Denver Broncos football. It's not Denver Broncos football that you want it to be, but at what point do you realize this is who they are? And I think that's kind of that's the really bummer realization this year is, damn, it is this bad.
And again, like, Vance deserves a bunch of heat, obviously, but it's not. There's only so much he can do to tell a guy like, this is your gap. Like, this is the gap that you are in charge of. Like, you are a linebacker. You just can't let anybody run through here. His job is not let him go through here. His job is not let him go through here. Your job, don't let him go through here. Like, they could just sit there for an hour as he explains the importance of protecting your gap, but there's only so much he can do. And in a game like yesterday, again, I haven't gone back through. I would imagine it's the same problems as before, though, where guys just aren't fulfilling their responsibilities. And there are some parts that are obviously on Vance, like the soft zone coverage, that's caused a bunch of problems. But a lot of it is, I mean, they missed 24 tackles in one game. And you're not even allowed to practice tackling anyway.
Put that in context.
2010,
actually, really quick, because this next comment has to do with it, and I want to get your awesome insight. The Count says, I have so many questions, but of utmost curiosity, I'd like to know how guys that have been smoking dudes all their lives have just forgotten how to wrap up.
Yeah.
I may go into the crypt for a spell now. Love the Count. We love you, the Count. Okay, Henry.
Doesn't
put
make
into
sense.
context how bad tackling has been.
They missed 24 tackles against the Dolphins. They missed in 2010. They missed 49 all season.
So in one game, they hit half the season total in 2010.
And that's the only way that, like, one person can't give up 70 points. Like Vance Joseph, unless he did something totally absurd, unless he was called like a goal line defense and was leaving guys uncovered or whatever else. Like,
every play.
Exactly. Like just, yeah, like you still have like a guy, he's covering him. Like they still have their opportunity. Like you have to have everything go wrong to give up 70, and they haven't given up 70 every week. But again, it's just so many mistakes over and over and over and over. And yeah, I mean, that's what makes it so tough to build around, is that you don't even know. It's like, I can't tell, is Alex Singleton having a good season? I know he missed some tackles in that Miami game, but when everything else is falling apart around him, it's like he doesn't even have a chance to do his job half the time. Or like somebody tweeted at me, like, you ignored Singleton, the play against Justin Fields, when Fields kind of rolled out in that game and Kmet scored the touchdown behind him. And so like Kmet's just like standing there. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Singleton?
Yep.
Okay, cool. But it's Nick Bonito's job to not let Fields out of the pocket. And so he gets kind of bodied by tight ends. It's a tough play to make. But he doesn't do his job. So Fields gets outside. And Kareem is in man coverage on Cole Kmet. And so his job is to just not let him catch the ball. But now that Justin Fields is out there, how do you not just go tackle him? Like, you have to do it. Otherwise, he just runs in for the touchdown. Meanwhile, Alex's job is on the backside, plugging up the running lane. And then after that, covering the fullback out of the backfield. And then once he gets done with those jobs, he sees Fields over there and flies across and runs by Cole Kmet, who's not his responsibility. So, like, it'd be nice if he had the, like, heads up, like, oh, Kareem is going, and Kareem was on this guy, so I should take, but, like, that's asking a whole lot for him to realize all of these things going around him. And really, the first domino was just Nick Bonito. And that's how all these plays are, just like, who screwed up first? And then there's a bunch of guys who weren't able to cover for it.
Everyone.
They just stink.
That's probably the answer, Henry.
Yeah,
Everyone
exactly.
screwed up.
Because somebody new screws up every play. It's not like there's one thing.
And this whole organization, from top down, it's a mess right now. And we will be here throughout the entire rebuilding process. Broncos have a game in just 3 days, which spread right now, 10.5.
Yep.
Very curious if the Broncos can cover. If you think the Broncos can cover, we're going to be back tomorrow on the podcast talking about, is it time to tear everything down? What could the Broncos get for Justin Simmons? Can they get a first? Can they get a second? What about Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Pat Surtain? All of these guys, we're going to break that down as we also start to preview the Kansas City Chiefs game. Thank you all so much for rolling with us. It is not fun to be a Broncos fan right now, but you guys make it fun. You guys and gals make it fun to be a DNVR Broncos fan right now. We really appreciate all of the support we get, and we hope that you continue to roll with us, even with the Broncos being bad. Thank you all so much. We'll see you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.